All right, everyone. So today we have in front of us something different. Many people might think that Sony just makes TVs and they just make, household things, home theater things, speakers, but they actually make consumer electronics too, including, but not limited to, smartphones. So this is their Xperia line of smartphones that actually has been out for a very long time, and a lot of people don't know about the phones because they're not really widely used or widely really recommended, I guess, and I don't really know why. This phone came out in 2017 around I believe spring summer, in the midst of Samsung's launches and things like that. This is the Sony Xperia XZ Premium, one of their main devices that they have, and it really is a fantastic device. People just don't know a lot about it. So before I open it, a little bit about the Xperia line. So the Xperia has been out. They are international phones. They do also release in the US. One thing that is kind of strange is this phone does have a fingerprint sensor on it. But if you buy a US version, actually bought in the US, the fingerprint sensor is disabled. So on these phones, the sensor is on the power button on the side and is actually disabled by default for some patent reason in the United States. So a lot of ways that people get around that is to buy the international version, which works perfectly fine in the US, and then you have a working fingerprint sensor. That's pretty nice. So I gotta say real quick that this phone won't be a true unboxing. It is already opened because I actually bought this device used, and why I decided to do a video on it now, so late from release, because I purchased this phone for between $300 and $400 online used. And why that's a big deal is this actually comes in cheaper than the OnePlus 5. It has a great camera. It has quick charge. It is actually IP67, water resistant, quick charge, headphone jack, and it has an HDR compatible screen with dual front facing speakers. So it's actually a very good device, very good specs for right now, the money. And if you look online, again, I'm gonna promote Swappa. I'm not sponsored or anything, but I bought this device on Swappa. There's a bunch on there for around $500, which is a direct competitor in mint condition, which for a phone that hasn't been out that long, isn't that big of a deal. If you actually look at the back, it has a 19 megapixel camera, 13 megapixel selfie shooter, 5.5-inch 4K HDR display, USB-C, 3200 milliamp hour battery, Qualcomm Snapdragon 835, 64 gigabytes of storage, and I was mistaken, it's actually IP68 rated, not 67. So this is like a Samsung phone versus a Pixel or iPhone rating. So again, I bought this used for between $300 and $400, and it's already been opened. I've already set it up, being that it wasn't a true unboxing. But here's the device. So this is the midnight black or shiny black version, glass. All glass. You can see it is super shiny. You can see my reflection. See where I'm recording. All one piece. You have your sensor array up here. Have your 19 megapixel camera in the back. You have just the branding Xperia. It actually has an NFC logo right there, so that must be where your sensor is. And then that's it. The bottom, you just have your USB Type-C and looks like a microphone hole. Again, it has a nice chamfer right around the edge, which is pretty nice. On the top, you have the lovable headphone jack, which again isn't very long for this world, another microphone. And on the front, you have your selfie. It's hard to see with the reflection. One front-facing speaker, probably a proximity sensor, and then the bottom front-facing speaker. So again, I bought this used. It's in great shape. Over here, you also have the power button plus fingerprint sensor, volume up and down, and you actually have a dedicated camera button. The camera is very important on this phone. It's a very good camera. It actually is the only camera right now on a smartphone that shoots 960 frames per second slow-mo video, which is super slow versus anything else that's out right now. And So they put a dedicated camera button, which is fantastic. And here you have the SIM tray, also micro SD card slot, so you have expandable storage. This is very simple. You actually just pull it out with your fingernail. You don't need a SIM ejection tool. You don't need anything like that. But the caveat, anytime you pull out that SIM tray, the phone has to reboot. Kind of strange. Don't know why, but again, this device is going to shut down in a second, so I'm going to let that power back on. We're going to continue on with the old box. In here, you just have some papers and things, nothing too fancy. Probably came with headphones, but it didn't come in my package, which is totally fine. I have tons of headphones to use. And then, cats are joining on the party. You have the quick charge brick and USB-C to USB-C cable. Dual, or USB-C to USB-A, my mistake. It is quick charge, so that's great. Put that back in there like so. So, again, a cool thing about this screen is it is HDR compatible. So, and it is a 4K screen. So the screen is absolutely fantastic. Hope on deck. Give me a second. So, here's the phone. Definitely going to be a little quicker video. Oh, that color is awful. There we go. Color of the video was awful, my bad. Anyway, here's the device. So, it is something Hope is actively investigating. This device is very fast. There's a lot of things that goes on. You have this moving background wallpaper dealio. This actually is one of the very first phones to get Android 8.0 Oreo, besides the Pixel line of phones, both the last year's and this year's. This did get Oreo. It is on 8.0, even though 8.1 is out. Sony does a little bit of customization, not a lot. You have the UI. It doesn't look very new. I would say this is a very not 2017 looking phone. And I think that's probably why a lot of people haven't heard of it, didn't care about it, is it's kind of dated, I guess, in design-wise. Not that it's bad. I mean, this phone feels great. Oh, get out of here. This phone feels great in the hand. You know, it's got some weight to it. It's very slippery, unfortunately, because of the glass everywhere. But it does a good job. I wouldn't say it's a bad design. It's just not a trendy design. I'd say it'd be the accurate term. Hope, you gotta get out of here. So you do have a very thick bezel on top, very thick bezel at the bottom, and some bezels on the corner. And that's okay. Yeah, that's a better on the white background. You can see there's a lot of black, right? So it's not very trendy. Hope, you gotta get out of here. It's not very trendy. You know, it's not screenless, bezel-less, you know, notch in the top sort of thing. But what you do get is you get a substantial battery. You get some very good sounding speakers coming out of the top and the bottom. And you also get this 4K display. And I mean, I was watching Netflix earlier on it, and it just looks fantastic. The colors are great, the pictures are great. You do have HDR support, so if you have any videos that are HDR compatible, it does work great with that. The camera has a lot of options. Sony does do their cameras fairly well. And again, if you are going on according to DxOMark, this phone comes in at an 83, which in comparison the Pixel is a 98, and the iPhone X being a 97. So there's a big difference. However, I would say this phone in the right lighting is all as good as both of those, again, in the right lighting. So I was messing around with this a little bit yesterday, and the low light definitely has some work to be had. You know, the low light isn't great. If you tweak, it does have a manual setting, so you can get some very good shots if you do decide to take the time of tweaking. Excuse me, if you do decide to tweak all your settings, autofocus, all that, you know, plenty of options for white balance, exposure, ISO, shutter speed, which again, shutter speed is arbitrary in a digital phone like this because there actually is no shutter, but a little tidbit of information for you. Other than that, I did a quick and dirty little speed comparison, just holding my two phones side by side, the Pixel and this. This phone opens all the apps the same. Pixel in this phone has 4 gigabytes of RAM, Snapdragon 835, almost all the same specs. My Pixel has 128 versus 64 gigs of storage, but this has micro SD card slot. Again, you know, this phone really is all 2017 as far as the spec is concerned. Again, this is all as spec'd out as the OnePlus, with the exception of the OnePlus has 8 gigabytes of RAM and this has 4. But Hobie, please get out of here. So that really, it makes a difference on paper, but it's not a huge difference according to the actual real world performance. Because if you actually look at speed comparisons of the 8 gigabyte OnePlus versus the normal, or even this phone, my girlfriend, like I said before in my other video, has the OnePlus 5T, and this is all as fast. I guess we're not getting rid of hope in this video today. We're just going to go over all is fast. Opening apps, everything is pretty comparable. I know I grazed over a little bit. Sony does have a slightly dated UI for what they do to it. It's not a very overdone UI, but as far as now, many phones have swipe up for your applications. This has the apps button, which is, again, that's fine. It's not a big deal. It's just, again, not on trend. Cool thing with Sony phones, which many people might not know, is if you do happen to own a PS4, you can actually connect it in remote play, meaning you can actually continue to playing. Say you go to the bathroom or you go upstairs or whatever, can't access your TV and your PlayStation is on, you can still play with this phone. Pretty unique. The speakers get nice and loud. I haven't had a chance to compare them to the Pixel 2's dual speaker setup, but again, Sony should be good speakers. Again, the camera does take some great photos in the right light. The battery has lasted pretty well. I actually watched Netflix for around 2.5 hours, I think, the other day, and it went down about 20%. Not huge, but I expected it to actually drain more. This phone does actually, I'm not going to say throttle your display, but it will reduce its resolution when it doesn't need to. So that obviously helps your battery life. Really, you know, it's, so far I haven't used it as a daily driver. I actually used it, I'm going to be using it for filming and photoing. I haven't used it personally yet. I plan on using it for photography, for when I'm doing these videos, as well as recording, so that I don't have to take my Pixel 2 out of the rotation while, you know, that is a very popular device at this time. So I got it on a great sale. I really think that this phone, people will be upset when I say it, but I think this phone is all as good as the OnePlus 5T, with the only big difference between the OnePlus 5T and this being OnePlus has their interesting dual setup now for low light, so low light may be a little better. OnePlus does have dash charge, and OnePlus does have the 18:9 aspect ratio on the screen. So this is a more traditional display layout. It's a more square phone versus curves. It does have a nice curve around the corners, but not so much to the screen. This phone has IP68 water resistance and a headphone jack. The OnePlus also has a headphone jack, but no water resistance. Hope you really gotta get out of here. And this has dual speakers and a micro SD card slot, as well as dual SIM, which the OnePlus has also. So really, apples for apples, they're very close. I would say this is closer to the OnePlus than it is the Pixel, just because the Pixel right now is really tough to beat camera-wise. You know, every shot I take in my Pixel, even a fleeting moment, seems to be good. This, I took good ones, took a minute to get adjusted, but it's still good. And, you know, charging, the OnePlus will be faster. My Pixel, I didn't really do a speed test on charging with this phone yet, but this phone, when it released, was much more money. It was, I believe, around $800 to $900. So it's a flagship level pricing. But now as 2017 is coming to a close and there's a bunch of deals going on, if you're looking for a 2017 release phone that maybe checks all your boxes as far as a very competent, if you're looking for a new phone that's 2017 with the Snapdragon 835 and it's going to hold the candle that everybody else is, this has a very, very competitive camera for many, many flagships. I would easily say it's comparable to OnePlus. I would easily say it's comparable to a lot of other devices. Maybe not the Google Pixel or the iPhone 10s, but it is very good. It has your water resistance. It still has your headphone jack. It still has your dual front-facing speakers for a lot of people, and it also still has your micro SD card slot. So it is very much feature-rich in the sense that it has a lot of stuff. It might not be what you consider the most important features. Maybe you're all about that new bezel-less design. I think the actual design is pretty eye-catching because it is different now that many, many phones are doing this unislab, very rounded look. This is a very square, reminds me a lot of the Razer phone style device, big and square, which there is people who really like that. Real quick, the fingerprint sensor, you just press on it, and by the time you press on it and let go of the button, you're in the device. It's a very fast fingerprint sensor, all as fast as the Pixel. The animations are pretty minimal, so you're not going to be upset with this phone. I mean, if you can get a good deal, $400 or $500, I would pick this all day over the OnePlus just because it is a much more premium device. It costed a lot more when it first came out, and I think you'll have a lot better longevity with it because of that. Maybe you haven't used a Sony device before. I know I haven't. This is actually my first time holding on to a Sony phone. I know a lot of people do appreciate them. They have a lot of cool things. There's a bunch of apps that I could go into with 3D Creator and their movie studio that really is a good looking apps for this phone, in the sense that you can do a lot of stuff. You can fully edit your photos. It has AR that is included in Oreo. You can do AR stickers. Really, the list goes on the plus side of this phone, with many of the negatives being the trendiness of the design. I really wouldn't think twice about using it. I even very much considered using it now because I think it's just as fast as my Pixel performance-wise. Actually, for Geekbench, this scores a few points, I think 30 or 40 points higher on the Geekbench consistently, where the OnePlus and the Pixel are right around there too. I mean, they're really close to each other. They perform great. Even the OnePlus with 8 gigabytes of RAM versus 4, double the RAM, is within 10 to 20 points of each other, which to me, I might as well call it the same because you're not going to see that performance day to day. Is it different than a 5-year-old phone? Absolutely. So this is my quote-unquote first look at a Sony Xperia XZ Premium. For a lot of people, you may not even know about this phone. For a lot of people, you might not even know Sony still made phones. They make a lot, both affordable and not affordable. This was a longer video, and I'm sorry about that, but I think being that this is a more uncommon device, I wanted to give it its justice because it is different. It is definitely worthy of a little extra screen time. So, this is Jared from TechWorks. I hope you enjoyed this video on the Sony Xperia XZ Premium smartphone. I will be back with more videos about this guy, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye!